about one of my favorite movies, the second Star Wars movie that came out back in 1983, maybe 1982. Anyway, The Empire Strikes Back. One thing about this movie, it was not directed by George Lucas back in the day. He directed the first one, Star Wars, and then directed Return of the Jedi, but he never did direct Empire Strikes Back. Now, my mom, I grew up in a poor neighborhood and everything, but I could have went to the movies. My mom was just not, she's still not, into science fiction. So I ended up having my dad at the time, he was around, and he made sure that I had books, but he didn't take me either. In any event, I had the books, so I read everything I could about Star Wars back in the day. And I had this big picture book about Empire Strikes Back in particular, and I remember the colors were so vivid to me. And and I already knew the story. I knew what happened in this book. And of course, I didn't go to the movies and see it. And I hadn't even seen Star Wars, the original Star Wars, just yet. I think like a year, maybe a year and a half later, I was at a mall, and I think it was Northline Mall down in Houston. And I passed by a Radio Shack. I'm not even sure if they're still around, but I passed by a Radio Shack, and they had it on a loop, on a VHS tape, right there in the store. And I was like, wow. So, and they had a sound system set up because they were trying to sell this stuff. They were trying to sell VCRs and, sound systems and whatnot. So I sat there the entire 2 hours and watched that movie standing up. And I remember seeing this movie, and I was a kid when this came out, but man, I tell you, so many good scenes in this movie, so many good lines. The Hoth battle, and seeing Luke take down his first AT-AT, him meeting Yoda, which was funny to me. It's still funny to me to this day. When he finally, when you see Han get tortured and then subsequently gets, dipped into the carbonite. Ooh, boy, I tell you, when Chewie was yelling and screaming and he started freaking out, and Han told him, hey, look, that's not going to help. I'm done for. I need you to protect the princess now. And the princess came up and kind of grabbed his hand to calm him down. And I was like, man, I tell you, I started bawling up right there in the store. Now, I didn't start crying or anything, but man, it hit me right here in the feels. And, when Han was going down and she says, I love you. And of course, he says, the famous line is, I know. And, he gets dipped into the carbonite. And, now keep in mind, I had already read this, in a book and everything, but just to see it on film was a totally different experience for me. Man, they got me right in the feels. And of course, they froze him, and Billy Dee Williams was like, look, he's frozen. We're going to go ahead and take him now. And, Darth Vader, he pretty much welched on the deal. And then, he wanted Luke to get there. And then Luke did arrive. And, Obi-Wan and Yoda was telling him, look, man, you're not ready for him. I know this guy. I know who you have to face. You're not ready. You need to stay here and complete the training. You've only been here a few weeks. And Luke was just, I got to go do what I got to do. He gets there, right? And man, he vaguely sees Leia, and he doesn't really know what's going on, but he's led into this room, the carbonite room, and he looks over at his gun, and he holsters it, and then of course you hear that ominous Darth Vader breathing, right? Which it's just, you hear it today, it still says kind of chills down my spine. And of course, Darth Vader's like, the force is with you, Anakin Skywalker, but you are not a Jedi yet. And man, just even today when I hear that, I'm like, ooh, because where this is going. But back then I didn't. Well, I did because I read the book. Of course, Luke, he lights up his lightsaber, and the way they light up Darth Vader's is kind of slow. Like Darth Vader, oh, we're gonna play this game? Fine, let's play. So Luke takes a few swipes at him. Darth Vader blocks him like they're nothing. And then Luke, a couple more swipes. Darth Vader blocks him, and then presses him on the ground. And at this point, you're thinking, okay, dude, you're no match for this guy. He's just toying with you at this point. And they go back and forth between that, and the escape of Leia and Lando Calrissian, and they go back to the fight, and it gets started. You see it starting to build up. The fight is starting to get faster and faster because this is just exercise for Vader. He's just trying to weigh him down just so he can trap him, and and they take him to the Emperor. And he gets to that point, and he thinks he has him. Of course, Luke, Luke's a little bit more skilled than Vader realizes, and that doesn't work. It's not he's skilled. He's damn, it is my son. He's not a Rudy Poot. But at one point I think he hits Vader, and Vader gets fed up. He's like, "Look, I'm tired. I'm about to show you the power of the dark side." And he starts flinging stuff at him, and Luke did not see this coming, wearing him down, just beat him up with all his debris, and he gets sucked out into the canopy, that little airway walk or whatever. And then they fight again, and it gets brutal. And I remember watching this with my ex-wife. And she was dead quiet. She had never seen these movies before. They had already been out, like, I think 20 years at this point. But she had never seen these movies before. And she's like, what's going to happen if you hit someone, you know, with that lightsaber? So she's probably dead. I said, but he doesn't want to kill him. He's got to wear him down. So I'm trying to explain it to her. And they're fighting. And he knocks Luke on the ground, right? He tells him, you are beaten. It is useless to resist. And then my ex-wife looks over at me. That's his daddy. And I'm like, yeah. She figured it out. And, you know, nevertheless, they get to that point to where he cuts off Luke's hand and he tells him, you know, search your feelings, I am your father. And I'll tell you, my ex-wife, you could the look on her face like, wow. And I imagine back in the 80s, before the internet or anything like that, people, dude, that had to, oh, that was like a gut punch. Like, wow, dude, this had never been done before in cinema. I mean, I'm telling you, this was, the big baddie was the father of the good guy. I mean, you just never saw that. And this wasn't a bad guy like he was just a trifling bad guy. He had killed like, I think 2 or 3 people in this movie already by choking. So he was they already demonstrated that this guy that has no qualms about killing folk. In any event, Luke escapes and they end up escaping. You know, he has no way out, but he calls Leia. Leia, you know, he has that connection with Leia. She comes back and get him. And the movie ends with Han being captured, Vader not being satisfied, and it just ends. Now think about that. Back in the 1980s, like I said, no internet. All you had was the newspaper. That's it. That's all you had. And maybe some magazines. Magazines were out, but they were very careful about what they put out in print and whatnot. So, dude, I tell you, just you can't imagine. I mean, I know you guys are too young to remember this. But I'm telling you, back in the day, waiting 3 years with no type of knowledge of what was going to happen, heart-wrenching. I tell you, it was heart-wrenching. Luckily, we had some other movies that tied us over until then. I think we had Raiders of the Lost Ark came out between that time, and, you know, a couple of other movies, and of course we got, you know, Return of the Jedi. But I tell you, nothing compares to this day like Empire Strikes Back. Pretty soon, they're going to be releasing this next movie, not The Force Awakens, but The Last Jedi, whatever that means. And, you know, I like The Force Awakens, but, you know, hey, it was pretty much a rehash of the original. Fine, I got that, but it was still a decent movie, still a very good movie. I'm glad J.J. Abrams he loved Star Wars. And, you know, he had to introduce a whole new generation to it. And I totally get that. So I'm not really bothered by that. That's pretty much all I got to say on this video. Thank you for visiting my channel. I really appreciate you listening to me rant. Please hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button because it really does help me out when you do that. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourself.